Once upon a time, there was a little village near a dense and thriving forest. It was a very old forest, full of thick and dense vegetation. Many animals were living in the forest, but rarely anyone dared to go too close, never mind to enter the forest. There didn't seem to be any paths in the forest, and the people of the village were scared of it, because it seemed so eerie. And they didn't really have any reason to. The ground around the village was very fertile and it provided the villagers with anything they needed. But everything was not well. There was an evil wizard which ruled over the village. He threatened to destroy the village if they wouldn't give the majority of their harvest to him and his henchmen. The wizard was very greedy, and taking as much as possible from the villagers was not enough for him. He decided to build a massive castle where the forest was, so he could rule over the land around. But to build his castle, first he needed to get rid of the forest. To deal with this quickly, he planned to use his powerful magic. So he traveled to the forest, and when he arrived there, he unleashed a powerful storm to clear the whole forest. All of the trees broke like matchsticks, and there was a horrible devastation. All the trees were broken but one. It was the oldest and biggest tree in the middle of the forest. The wizard sent his strongest winds, but it didn't do anything to the tree. His roots were just too big and too deep. The wizard was annoyed by this. How should he build his castle if this giant tree was in the way? He decided to leave and sent his henchmen to chop it down later. The villagers were terrified by the powerful magic of the wizard, but also astounded that this tree didn't give in one bit to the power of this storm. Some of the villagers felt a bit sad seeing that the forest they lived next to all their lives was completely devastated. But what means would they have to do anything about it? So they kept doing their usual occupations. The next day, when the sun was rising, the villagers were shocked by what they saw. The whole forest was completely grown back, stronger and thicker than before, like nothing ever happened. The villagers just couldn't comprehend what had happened. When the wizard came back with an army of his henchmen, he was also very surprised and thought that there had to be some kind of magic involved. But he already grew tired of having to deal with this forest and ordered his army to enter the forest and chop down the big old tree in the center of it. They immediately started chopping and cutting their way through the thick vegetation of the forest. The forest seemed to get more and more dense the farther they went ahead. But with all their weapons and blades, they still managed to keep going further. Eventually, they managed to reach the massive tree in the center. They looked at it for a moment, impressed by its size. But then they charged at it, and when they were swinging at it with all their blades, they couldn't hit anything. It was like they were hitting water. Suddenly, they realized that everywhere around them was water. The water got higher and higher, like in a swelling stream, and the henchmen were running and swimming for their lives. The whole forest had become a massive sea that was consuming everything around it. The villagers couldn't believe what was happening. They were panicking and rushed to the higher ground in the village. The water still kept rising and the villagers were very frightened. Then suddenly the water stopped and calmed down. Everyone was still wondering what had happened, but at least all the people from the village seemed to be safe. While they were waiting there, an elderly man said that he might know what was going on. He remembered about a story he heard when he was a kid. It was said that there was a sacred tree somewhere in the forest that contained the spirit of nature. Maybe there was truth in this story, and over time people forgot about it. And maybe this tree felt threatened by the wizard and tried to protect itself. They agreed that this might be true, but they still didn't know what to do. While they were deliberating, they noticed that the water was actually going down again. When it started to get dark, they could still not see anything from the forest, so they decided to examine what had happened on the next day. When it got light in the morning, again something miraculous happened. The forest was still there, thicker and greener than ever before. It was truly unbelievable. The wizard, which just barely managed to escape the flood, was furious to see that the forest and the tree were still there. So he wanted to get rid of it for sure this time. He went in the forest by himself and struggled to get through the dense vegetation. But his anger fueled him to keep going until he reached the mighty tree. He was ready to use his most powerful magic and planned to burn the tree and the whole forest with it. He started to cast his spell. Sparks were flying through the air, and with a loud thunder, a firestorm enveloped everything around him. The wizard felt satisfied, but after a moment he realized that the fire was spreading way faster than he expected, and there were already flames everywhere around him. He was searching for a way to get away, but then saw that his clothes were already on fire. He was screaming and started to run blindly through the flames. He kept running until eventually he got out of the forest, where he tried to use his magic to extinguish the flames. But nothing happened. Again he casted a spell. Nothing. At this point he realized he couldn't use any magic anymore. Somehow the fire took him all his magical powers. By now the whole forest was engulfed in flames, and they kept spreading towards the village. The villagers tried to use water against the flames, but it didn't work. The flames just got stronger and stronger. The people from the village got very scared for their lives and their homes. But the old man who told them the story advised them to stay calm now and proposed something. He said that all the villagers should go near the fire, apologize, and sing adorations to the forest to calm the fire. They were not sure about going near the fire, but what other means would they have if not even water was doing anything? So they did what the old man was saying and went near the fire to apologize for what happened to the forest and said prayers of adoration. Surprisingly, the fire actually stopped coming closer. The villagers kept going and the fire started to slowly retreat. When it reached the forest, they could see that the vegetation of the forest was unharmed, like nothing happened. Eventually, the fire went out completely and the forest was thriving more than ever before. The villagers understood that the story of the old man was true and that this forest was very special. They felt very thankful that it freed them from the oppression of the wizard, and from this day on, the forest was sacred to them and they respected and protected it.